Thanks for downloading a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online. Now stay tuned for your 3CR podcast.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
And the aliens with mind meld and give them the technology. They're bad aliens. So are you surprised the Nazis were influenced by demons?
No, if demons are real, I would definitely think they'd be on the side of the Nazis.
Yeah.
McDonald's is connected to the Clintons. They chop up the bodies and put them into the sausage and hamburgers. People are being cannibalized. Look it up.
And I'm watching CNN talk about this as violent white nationalist protests. We have done everything in our power to keep this peaceful, you know?
It's Pepe's become kind of a symbol.
You're listening to Yeah Nah Pasaran, a show about fascism and its gravediggers. I'm Cam Smith.
I'm Andy Fleming.
And we're joined this week by Tom Tanuki. And now, Tom, I realised last time we had him on, I only introduced him via, old projects that he'd been involved in, like Yard, yelling at racist dogs. But he's got all of this new stuff going on. I never let him plug any of it. So, Tom Tanuki, obviously you know him from Yard, but you'd also know him from things like Million Flag Patriots. How are you, Tom?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I don't know what I do now. I think I've just become a lowly YouTuber. Now I've undertaken the undignified task of doing 45-minute videos where I lecture people about things.
Tom, you can hear on the podcast The Poor Can Feed the Birds, and of course, as he mentioned, you can find him on YouTube at Tom Tanuki, where he, you've done some really interesting videos, actually, I'll just say.
Thanks, mate. I think I've seemed to have gone more towards the practice. I mean, particularly given that now, for the most part, we're all trapped inside. It seems a good time to start perfecting the craft of doing deep dives into subjects. And, I suppose in our world, we tend to hyperfixate on fringe movements, particularly those that we don't like so much. Sometimes we watch what they do and we talk about it. So if you do that, then this year that means looking at conspiracy people. No one would know that better than you, Cam, hey?
I know them all too well. But the last time we spoke to you, we spoke about Qanon. Amongst other things, we talked about the anti-lockdown movement, and that's what we're going to do again today. But hopefully we won't just be saying the same things as last time.
Yeah, I'll try and be fresh, jazzy, and you know. Hey, look, Q's had a real springtime since the last time we talked. It's a big deal now, isn't it?
And also, I think the drops might have been a bit thin on the ground the last time we spoke, and maybe they've ramped back up.
Yeah, Q had a big lull at around the time of. Certainly at around the time of coronavirus, because, if you're a super spy who knows all the big hoaxes and such coming up, then, of course you want to go on a bit of a hiatus when the largest event to affect the world in years occurs, don't you? That's when you want to take a break, isn't it? Yeah, but there were a few Q lulls, but I mean, I've got the little app on my phone. I get 2 drops a day at the moment, I think. It's really Q time.
And do you spend much time trying to interpret the meaning of these drops, Tom?
Oh, man, I do my research. I'm a crumb baker.
Good.
I bake the crumbs constantly. No, look, I read them and they're always just facile rubbish. Really what they are is invariably just sharing boomer tier memes from Facebook and other stuff, like the transparently paper-thin just garbage of them. It's just rabble-rousing meme garbage half the time and cryptic, indecipherable stuff, The real Q action doesn't even happen with the Q drops, though, anymore, does it? It just happens when everyone else takes the Q message and then they do whatever the hell they like with it, or whatever is most profitable for them, hey?
But how does this stuff translate to Australia, Tom? Have you had a chance to have a look at that?
This is very nice. Look, I went for a feed just before this chat, but before that I've spent 8 or 9 hours today editing the second part of my Aussie Q video. So it's really nice to have a bit of a break away from that because, you get caught up in these big videos. there's one bit of the video in which I'm sort of talking about how the propagators of conspiracy theories like this are really just feeding the chooks. And so I got a bit of footage of actual chooks being fed, and I was editing little placards with the letter Q on them. And I've spent 6 hours doing that to chickens. It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it. Yeah. So what I mean to say is that I'm into the second part of a longer video deep dive into Q now. Can I say as well, Cam, your consistent and ongoing work into talking about anti-lockdown and Aussie Q stuff and sharing that kind of thing. I wouldn't be able to do this stuff without your hard and consistent work in that respect. And I've been consistently in awe this year of your incredibly high tolerance for constantly looking at these people's videos. I don't know how you stomach it.
Oh, this is a nice little mutual appreciation society.
I mean, I can't do it as much as you can. But yeah, I think you've also sorted out how to watch them on double time, the videos.
Yeah, that's the trick.
That's the trick, yeah. Triple time? Triple time works with some of the sovereign citizens, I think it would work, because some of them speak so slowly, eh?
Yeah, when they sound like they're on ketamine, you can usually get them up to almost 3 times speed.
Okay, so what was the question? Oh, yeah, Aussie Q. Well, we got our Aussie Q. I mean, it's not like we didn't have it previously, although it was a real reach. It was really just the typical Donald Trump deification work and the fascist spy fantasy stuff that is classic American Q. But, you know, of course, there's a bit of a chest bug this year. Some of your listeners may have been made aware of a chest bug that's doing the rounds. And it's having an effect on people, and it's having an effect, obviously, on conspiracy theories, as anyone who follows us would know. So we have a supercharged, you know, all conspiracy theories have received a shot in the arm. And I would say it took until about July, August for Q adjacent theories to really solidify in their sort of Aussie contextualisation. Mostly, I think, through the whole children in underground tunnels / save the children stuff. I don't know. Would you agree that was our first time we started having a real solid dose of Q in Australia?
Yeah, I mean, there was this sort of pedophile conspiracy involving the Australian government that's been bubbling along for a while. It might even predate Q, our local thing, and I sort of saw Qanon getting incorporated into that. But yeah, I think the tunnels thing was maybe the first part of it here.
Well, we've also always had our ritual sex ring stuff, haven't we? We've got Fiona Barnett over here, but I think I first realised that we were inevitably going to get an Aussie version of Q when I was watching Fall of the Cabal, and which, you know, if any of your listeners don't know, it's the 87,000 part documentary that exists on, I think, only on BitChute nowadays. And it's all about the extended Q universe, and it goes through, it's 8 or 9 parts, and it goes for far too long. And for most of it, it's sort of bubbling beneath the surface, and then in the last couple of parts, it just explodes on you with this full cabal, pedophile ring fantasy world. And in one of those final parts, it mentions global examples of testimony regarding the pedophile sex ring around the world, and it mentions Fiona Barnett. And when it mentioned that, I thought, yeah, this is how we're going to get it. And indeed it is. You know, I mean, you know, the lasting staying power in our imaginations of religious / political pedophile sex rings, and the fact that sometimes it's grounded in truth, I suppose, combined with, you know, the rest of the stuff, this lasting delusion about children trapped in tunnels. That's how we got Aussie Q, it seems. And now everything else, I mean, now it's just a 6-month pipeline from that to Australians who live in this alternate American fantasy land where they post about Donald Trump all the time. So, but its ability to, via Save the Children stuff, to get a whole range of different political persuasions in is what I found fascinating, you know. I talk a lot in the Aussie Q videos about how your auntie, using her as an example, your auntie she might not be that far right wing now, but she might be quite left. She might just be a spiritual hippie type. But there's this broad appeal to things like Save the Children and Great Awakenings. There's almost a hippie-like quality to it, particularly when you tone down the whole MAGA element of traditional Q. And it's getting people in there. But Q is not just a conspiracy theory, is it? It is this conspiracy theory that is meant to drag you right after a few months. So your auntie's going to be talking about make Australia great again in 6 months if she isn't right now.
We've got the tunnels that appeared in the US being transplanted to Australia, but are there any unique elements that the Australian mob has introduced to Q?
One of the funner things that I heard was a Q-pilled person talking about how the deep state or the cabal built the layout of CBD Melbourne, which as we know is a grid, built it. It's basically a construct through which a magical spell can be cast over the population of Melbourne, right?
Wow.
Now, it's connected, that grid is connected to the MCG, which is just down the road. Now, this particular Q-pill person was saying it's modelled on a 4D hypercube design, which, I haven't done my research, so I don't know as much as they do about what that means. But here's the thing. Now, before the pandemic, everyone would go into the MCG and they'd go and watch their footy games or their big concerts and they'd all cheer on and they'd roar. And what that would do is that would go through and it would charge the grid of the 4D hypercube Melbourne CBD, and it would release the dream spell, and that would keep all the Melburnians asleep, like sheeple. But now, during coronavirus, no one's going to the MCG, so everyone's at home, and they're not being sent to sleep.
Yeah.
That's why there's so many people are waking up, and that's why the conspiracy movement has had such a shot in the arm. So I thought that was a really cool way of explaining, using fantasy dream conspiracy logic, why suddenly during a pandemic the conspiracy movement has so many more people. Of course, it can't just be that everyone's terrified and they want a fantasy answer to their real life sad questions. But 4D hypercube, guys, MCG, get on it.
I've been telling journalists it's because people have had more time at home to get on the internet and get lost in rabbit holes. I wish I'd known about the hypercube.
No, I think you should start. You could call those journos back before whatever it is goes to print, and tell them you've done your research.
I've just got one more thing. The hypercube.
Put the hypercube in. Yeah, no, I think the population needs to know. So that's one thing I've seen. But, what I mostly find, though, is that the contextualisation is paper thin. I mean, all they had to do was change the place names, didn't they? There was a lasting theory about mole children trapped underground, used for adrenochrome and for sexual pleasure and so on and so forth by the deep state. And that was supposed to be happening underneath Central Park in New York, because New York has a big series of underground tunnels and what have you. So, as it happens, does Melbourne. I mean, Melbourne is, after all, the international founding place of the Cave Clan, which that was where Cave Clan started in the 80s, because we have a lot of tunnels underneath the city. So that makes sense. But all they've really done is they've just changed the place name. They've just said instead of under New York, it's underneath Melbourne tunnels, But I think, it's got that lasting global appeal to say, to people, to bored and scared families, parents. It seems to be a good entry point to what is essentially a far right Big Tech conspiracy theory. It's a softer entryway because it appeals to people's fear for children. You don't need to convince people to worry about kids. That's a pretty popular cause,
I can confirm one of the founders of the Cave Clan got in touch and they confirmed there are no children in the tunnels.
I was talking to a couple of Cave Clan people myself. There was a thing, unfortunately we didn't get in touch with each other in time, but I was thinking for a little while that maybe it might have made sense for that to be in my first Aussie Qanon video, because I did dwell on the children in tunnels thing for a little while. But, the question was, if you, at least in my head was like, if I get a member of the Cave Clan to talk to me, do you have a conversation with him in which you go, are there children under tunnels? No. Or do you seize upon the opportunity to talk to the Cave Clan and go, are there kids in the tunnels? And then they go, yes. And then you see what everyone says about that. That would be pretty funny. But we didn't get around to it.
That might be for the best.
The Cave Clan are young at heart, right?
Well, That's right. That's right. But, because that would raise a whole other series of questions, if they did say the kids under the end. And the next question would be, what were you doing? You're going around getting photos, going through these stormwater drains, and you're just like, oh, there's 50 adrenochrome children trapped. Let's just move on. How irresponsible of them to do that.
Maybe the Dole Army could be interrogated as well, because I understand they lived under Melbourne.
That was their location, wasn't it? Yes.
It was, yes.
Lots of irresponsible subcultural Melburnians are clearly complicit in one way or another in this whole controversy.
Yeah, the thing is, it does all seem to be basically transplanted with just the place names changed. One of the weird thing I saw when I was talking to someone about, they say, oh, we've been hearing explosions underground, and that's how we know the military is down there. I was speaking to someone, and they're like, yeah, I did hear explosions underground. They're drilling a big tunnel under Melbourne. At the moment, they are. That's literally happening.
There are explosions. Yeah, see, there's an element of truth to this. Yeah, they are building tunnels underneath Melbourne. So I guess, yeah, okay. Because when I didn't stop to think about that, and then when I saw about the explosions, I thought, oh, here we go. They're just copying the points of the Q, fan base in America wholesale, because of course that's all they ever spent their time doing. And America regularly gets earthquakes, but here in Melbourne, not so much, hey?
Well, I see that every time that there's an earthquake, they say, oh, this is the tunnels. And then because the earthquakes, I guess there's earthquakes, maybe not as often as in America, but in Australia, they're all over the place. Like, in somewhere completely unpopulated. And so this is why now the tunnel thing is expanded to not just tunnels under Melbourne, but an interconnected web of tunnels around Australia and through, the middle of nowhere, because we have to match them up with where the earthquakes happen.
Yeah, I have seen rudimentary maps suggesting that there's tunnels everywhere. I mean, of course, we can't even get an overground high-speed rail network, but
there's all these trees in the way.
Yeah, that's right. But we can get this, evil pedophile tunnel network that spans the entire nation. That sounds very efficient. That is how the deep state would work, isn't it, I suppose? We know they're real priorities.
So, Tom, how do you feel about freedom? Is that a good thing?
Oh, I love it. And it's just, just the divorced, abstract notion of it just gets my heart aflutter. It makes it makes the hairs on my arms stand on end. I love freedom, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I just wanted to wish you both a happy Freedom Day for last weekend.
Yeah, how was your Freedom Day?
Seriously, guys, happy Freedom Day, and I hope you enjoyed it in the freest way that you know how. I had a good Freedom Day. I actually wanted to go out to one of the Freedom Day events, but was homebound watching the plentiful live streams on the day. How did you guys enjoy your Freedom Days? Did you get out there and film a copper on portrait?
No, I didn't, but I did watch some fascinating material, including a shocking story about an intrepid journalist who was prevented from doing their work through the intervention of the CCP-sponsored police.
Yeah, commie dictator Dan. He's talking about one of the finest journalists in the land, Walkley Award recipient Ava Yemeni.
Yes, I am. How did you know?
He's a good journalist. What defines it? Is it if you have a press pass? Does he actually have a press pass? Can I get one? Is that how you do it? Do you just get it? I don't know. I'm ignorant. woefully ignorant on this. Does he have a press pass?
I think you just have to put a little thing that says press into the band of your hat, right?
So Avi Yemeni got arrested, and he did say to them, and I've seen this was a deja vu moment for me, Avi Yemeni at a protest lying on the ground telling the police to read a little letter in his pocket. This has happened multiple times. Everything that happens with Avi Yemeni is deja vu. This is what I hate about this guy. He's just this yappy, persistent, deja vu, Groundhog Day, Chihuahua energy. Just, he never does anything different. You know, everyone else has given up. Blair Cottrell's just given up. He's at home. He just whinges on Telegram about how banned he is, you know. Neil Ericsson's given up. They've all given up. Avi's still doing exactly the same thing. And I should admire that tenacity, but he's just a really irritating guy, you know?
You don't have to, Tom. It's okay.
So he got arrested during Freedom Day. But now hang on. He only got a caution, didn't he?
Mm.
Yeah, he did apparently receive a caution, but then I'm not sure what the story is exactly, but he did receive a visit from police later that evening, I think, just to drop in and say good day.
Listen, I assume I can speak for all of us when I say that we don't appreciate or condone the excesses of the bloody Vic poll during the pandemic. I don't sit there cheering them on. I don't wish upon my enemies or the people I dislike that the increasingly militarised Vic poll do exactly what they were designed to do to them. I'm not interested. I don't count it as a win when someone I don't like ends up with a Vic poll boot on their face. You know, whether that be at the events or whether that be them going around doing these compliance checks or people, or really on any of the excesses of their policing. You know, I don't think that the answer to the community crisis and to this medical, you know, crisis, this pandemic, is through policing and through Vic poll, you know, resolving everything with a fine. I really, really don't believe that. However, I make an exception for RVM. No, look, it's not specifically the cops thing. I generally have a little titter whenever anything unfortunate happens to him. That's just the relationship we've developed over time, he and I.
Well, I think also those sorts of incidents actually become, you know, further opportunities for marketing, really, because it's like, you know, I think Avi was trending on Twitter the other day, and there were any number of accounts who I don't think would either know, and even if they did, I'm uncertain if they'd care, given Avi's record. You know, this brave, truth-telling journalist was detained, which is another instance of communist repression in Mexico.
And I try to correct the record as regards people like him, because you know that you need to be there to do it, you know, and I know that you do the same thing as well, sack bastard. You know, someone needs to be there to try and correct the record, even if not that many people are listening to you. If there's one voice there at some point in the background going, no, hang on, here's what the history of this person is, you know. Not that Avi Yemeni is exactly a very popular figure amongst, you know, the mainstream media or what have you, but he is a very tenacious self-marketer. And long will he continue to be so, you know, and he continues to have successes, in his ability to market himself, you know. He's just scored a gig for himself at Rebel News, and I foresee future successes for him with his capacity to self-market. So we can see him getting pushed to the ground. You know, as I tried to correct afterwards in terms of the record on online, that's contextually probably because Avi Yemeni has been being pushed to the ground by coppers for trying to bait and provoke left rallies for years now. You know, I didn't see it happen to any other journalists. But then again, RV is not other journalists. RV Yemeni is RV Yemeni. So that's why what happened to him happened to him. But you need to be there to correct the record on people like that, because they rely on this kind of angling as regards, repackaging every event that happens. He's nowhere near as effective as him, but he's the closest that we've got in terms of, a successful grifter to the likes of your Andy Knows or whatever you overseas. So you need to be there to continue to correct the record, hey, because they'll end up snatching these movements. Like, this is a grassroots, for want of a better word, type movement, this anti-lockdown thing, but people like that will use it to their own ends, and repackage stuff that happens to them for more marketing material.
Well, Tom, we're going to have to leave it there for the radio, but if people tune into the podcast version, which you can do at 3cr.org.au/passaran, or look us up on Apple Podcasts, you will be able to hear a few more questions with Tom. But just in the meantime, on the wireless, Tom, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
And make sure people check out The Poor Can Feed the Birds and Tom Tanuki on YouTube.
And my second part of my Aussie Q video, which should be out by Friday.
We will catch you next week. Global Intifada is up next. So, Tom, what did you make of the rest of Freedom Day? How did you feel it differed from those anti-lockdown protests back in May that we talked about?
Look, my personal take, and I'd love to see what you think, I didn't get much of a sense of it differing in terms of its aims or its thrust, but I do see a more diverse crowd in attendance now. The appeal of the anti-lockdown movement to hippies, neo-spiritualists has completely solidified. The work that they have done, the work that the various components of the anti-lockdown movement, like the anti-vaxxers and what have you, have done, has now got its claws in with a much broader cross-section of the community. So in the attendance, in the kinds of people attending, you can definitely see a difference there. I don't think in terms of the messaging of the event itself that there was, I still think it's the anti-lockdown movement, I know, but it seems a lot more palatable now to a lot more people. And it's a very odd rally, or series of rallies last weekend. It's possibly the first I've ever encountered where almost everyone, many people that I know came to me and said, oh my God, my cousin is there, my husband is there, my parent is there, and they didn't know, and suddenly they're watching their mum on a live stream screaming at the cops about freedom. And there's been a lot of surprises for people, I suppose. But maybe this was always destined to happen, just with the continuing disenchantment that people feel with the understandably horrible circumstances of the pandemic. This would appear to offer an easy release, if for nothing else but to walk around and feel like an info warrior on Saturday around Melbourne, which you're not really allowed to do the rest of the time, are you?
Yeah, I feel like maybe the Melbourne one had a sort of chaotic energy because of in the circumstances leading up to it, where I think all of the people who had backed it originally, except with the exception of a few, pulled their support. And so you had this very motley crew, I describe them as.
How many people do we think attended? I have very conflicting numbers of Melbourne.
To me, it looked like maybe in the vicinity of 400 to 500.
Yep. So everything, I heard sort of some people going up to 300, some people suggested more. Yeah, I think it would have been a very, very big rally if the circumstances were different and if those organisers hadn't pulled out. But they didn't take them much to really crumble. Now, these are the same people that talk consistently about these sort of little fascist power fantasies in which everyone's going to execute Dan Andrews and then take over. And, they're ostensibly confronting the state, at least in their daily Facebook Live rhetoric. And all it took was a few visits from coppers and a couple of warnings for them to just flake all of a sudden and then start attacking each other.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see everyone accusing everyone else of being a cop. People who said the rally's off are a cop now, but also the people who said the rally was still on are being accused of being a cop because they led people into, sheep to the slaughter.
Who's currently number one in the cop rankings, do you think? I think it's Craig Cole.
Well, I did see someone point out Craig Cole, CC, C equals 3, 33, the highest Freemason power number it says it all.
Shall I go on to the Gematrix.org and type his name in?
Yes, please.
Gematrix.org.
What Passaran has been missing up until now is a regular Gematria segment.
I've been doing it. I did it at home with my partner yesterday. We remembered that there was some old man who used to come on my Facebook page, and he used to abuse me in very incoherent kind of patriot boomer terms. And my partner hit me with some of the things. She just suddenly messaged me. She'd been going through the notes on her phone, and she messaged me some of the things that he'd been saying. And I ran a couple of them through the Gematria calculator. And for everyone at home, this is a big conspiracy tool. It's ways to find out secret codes and things, basically. It's gematrix.org. And I put some of those codes in, and actually they ended up translating in code to some really loving biblical statements. So it was actually real nice. It was a really nice.
That's nice
conclusion. Yeah.
For people that don't know, Gematria is like an ancient art of divining meaning from words and letters. So every letter has a corresponding number, and A equals 1, B equals 2, and then sort of, I think the way they're doing it is that you work out the number that your words add up to, and then you look at other words that come to the same number, and then you can say, all right, they said this, and what they meant was this.
Oh, I have got some really telling. I've got a big reveal. Craig Cole, his name, and for everyone at home who's not aware, Craig Cole is an ex-wrestler, Pitbull, ran his own wrestling federation and turned into, he runs the St Kilda Rebellion page now, and he's been one of the first anti-lockdown heads. The rally that everyone thought that Thanos Panagidis organised, he actually organised. It was the one, the first big Melbourne anti-lockdown rally. So big respect to Craig Cole. Well, I thought so anyway, until I searched his name in the Jewish Gematria code, and the closest match is Barack Obama.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This is going to blow so many minds, Tom.
Deep state, guys.
Unbelievable.
I love this guy. I love this tool. I'm going to start, you know what? I might start basing my videos around this now. I will just search that, and then whatever entry, fits with whatever I'm trying to say, I can count that as a proof.
Yeah, Gematria, I feel like it's made a big comeback in the conspiracy world lately. I definitely see a lot of people, like a lot of these Q types, will take Trump tweets, and any letter that he capitalizes, they say, all right, those are the only ones to run through the Gematria. And then they divine his secret meaning that way. So they're sort of adding this layer of logic onto it. They're saying, we're not crazy. We're only going off the capital letters. And he does do like weird capitalization.
He does do very odd capitalisation, but and that's what I find odd, because so you would assume do lots of his followers. That kind of Facebook boomer, rage boomers tend to capitalise a lot of things. So I don't know why they find that to be so standout. Just people with a certain grasp of the written English language tend to capitalise words that they find more important. It just happens, But anyway, sorry. Why am I being so cynical? It's all code.
Well, I get the weird thing about Gematria to me was, like, a few years ago, I would see these guys on YouTube do it for everything, like these false flag guys. Every time there was any sort of terrible event, they would start running all of the different keywords relating to it through, Gematrix, and divining the secret meaning of these events from that. Because, of course, all of these events had been put in motion by the Freemasons or the Jews or the Jesuits or whoever. And so we can find out what they're really trying to tell us, even though why would they be sending you a message, but whatever. And it always, I know, I feel like this might have been a naive interpretation, but to me it seemed like there was this element of schizophrenia going on where you're divining these secret messages from terrible events, secret messages only you can understand. I think that might have been a bit wrong-headed, because I see these QAnon guys doing it now, and it's like, well, yeah, I guess divining a secret message only for you from the news is a sort of thing you would associate with mental illness, but it's not so much when you've learned how to do it from watching a YouTube video.
Yeah, it's the instructed path for how, the worldview of Q is telling you this is what's happening, and actually it's not just for you specifically, it's for everyone who's down with the plan, everyone who's, so it's just, it is, I mean, it does sound, it's something that would have been excused away at some point by mental illness. However, if you understand the Q world, suddenly there's a whole world of them who know better, hey?
Yeah, I guess even the Q drops themselves, like if you were to say to someone, oh yeah, I'm getting a secret message from the president. But as you've said, you can pull that secret message that you got from the president up on your phone.
Yes, totally. Am I the only one who has the Q Alerts app? Do you have it?
Yes, you're the only one. I don't need that in my life.
What, are you scared? Trust the plan. Trust the plan, Cam. That's my advice for you.
Tom, did you pay much attention to Freedom Day outside of Melbourne, including in Brisbane? Because I was informed by someone that the Brisbane rally was probably the largest.
Yeah, I'm pretty remiss in not giving a big shout out to Brisbane. People reckon they went from anywhere up to, I think the most generous estimates were 3,000 or 4,000 people. I was up in Brisbane for the Black Lives Matter event. I happened to be up this way at that time, and that event had about 50,000 people at it, and that's huge. Previously I hadn't really known that about Brisbane, that they get these large events. I mean, not that I'm trying to equate an attendance at Black Lives Matter with an attendance in anti-lockdown. I had always, inaccurately as it turns out, associated the city with very small activist or protest turnouts. However, that's just been a really surprising thing. But yeah, 3,000 or 4,000 people, and looking at the photos of it and what have you, there were quite a few QAnons there, and there were a lot of the what are they called? IMOP, the anti-vax lot, who I'd love to look more into. And also, yeah, I mean, you had the whole spread, didn't you? You had the far-right Proud Boys of Brisbane had shown up there to have a wander about, and someone reported back to me that they thought they might have been drunk when they were wandering around, which is, I guess that's part of freedom, isn't it?
To drink.
To day drink.
Yes, the freedom, the Aussie freedom to be drunk at a rally.
I did see one QAnon person who did visit Melbourne briefly. Simeon was at the Brisbane rally.
Yeah, how's he gone and got up there?
Well, he came down to Melbourne when the Flemington Towers were locked down. He and another QAnon guy came to Melbourne to save it. They were going to disarm the police. Yeah, and Simeon has made his way back to Brisbane via he's gone up. He's taken a circuitous route back to Brisbane, but I saw him in photos there, and he had a lanyard with his full name and address and phone number and everything on it. But also, it was stamped by the Postmaster General.
It's a strange lanyard. It's I saw it as well. It's got a red flag, the powerful magic red ensign of the people on it. And what is it sort of what title or rights does that pass confer in him? I wasn't sure when I was looking at it. I'm like, what is this thing supposed to be? Is this him sort of LARPing as a diplomat or something?
I think it might have just been maybe a general diplomatic immunity pass.
A backstage pass to the deep state. This is a diplomatic approach to penetrating those corridors of power, saying, look, we're at war, but I'm here waving the flag of peace. I just want to talk.
I did think it was interesting that it had that Postmaster General stamp on it, though.
That made it very official.
Well, I think that's been put there by a guy called Russell Gould, who's an American sovereign citizen. And I was looking at him the other day because, those thin blue line flags that some cops wear?
Yes.
It's like a black Australian flag with the blue line through it, because again, someone has transplanted the American thin blue line flag, which sort of makes sense because it's got stripes, and they make one of the stripes into a blue line. But they've taken the Australian flag and just whacked a stripe over it. Anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't look very good on the Australian one, but yeah.
Some of these anti-lockdown people were like, I don't get why they're wearing this flag because they don't understand these sort of simple concepts. But the reason that they'd come up with is because this guy, Russell Gould, who is a sovereign citizen from the States and declared himself Postmaster General of the world, he came to Australia.
Did he?
Yeah. But he came to Australia last year and he copyrighted the Australian flag.
I love this guy. It's cheeky.
And I
really cheeky.
I did a bit of a well, because the Corporation of Australia was bankrupt, so it was it's free for the taking.
Wow, what a hawk!
But I did a bit of research and I've discovered that he actually seemed to have come to Australia and signed documents with someone in Australia conferring these flags over to him. And so I wonder if he's actually given this stamp himself on this lanyard.
Is he? Does he walk among us? Is that possible?
He might do. But the other interesting thing about him is that he worked really closely with this guy called David Wynne Miller, who's the one that came up with, like, a lot of sovereign citizens put random punctuation into things.
Yes, yeah, totally, yep.
So David Wynne Miller is the guy that came up with that. And so you saw when Malcolm Roberts was accused of being a sovereign citizen, that's because he was using this quantum punctuation in his letters to Julia Gillard.
Yeah, because Malcolm has a very strong sovereign citizen background, doesn't he? That's his background of research. Is the war still happening between the sovereign citizens and the sort of the Q-pilled types? Because I was really enjoying that for a while there. So who was the guy? Simon
Maskey.
Thank you. Simon Maskey was, repeatedly threatening Steve Spears and the like that they were going to get their heads blown off in Gitmo.
I don't think that they have patched things up at all.
No, not saying eye to eye. No one's saying eye to eye in their movement. And I really enjoy that phase. We've all had experience seeing it happen with the Patriot movement and with different waves of white nationalism. From the very moment that this all began, I was hoping for that phase. It's been fun to see it happen. But then again, it seems to be a lot more. Say, if I'm trying to look at this versus the Patriot movement, I feel like this is because the overarching circumstances that drive everyone to want to be part of the anti-lockdown movement are so pervasive in everyone's lives. I don't feel like it's quite as reliant upon the martyr figures, the talking heads. They're the people that disseminate the information, and people tend to enter by going, follow this guy, he speaks the truth and all that kind of thing. Yes, there is that element. But I noticed that when one of these people, like obviously Fanos Paniidis has been told he can't even talk about protests until the next February, it doesn't seem to matter so much, because the what's keeping people there is the fact that everyone is being impeded from freely attending Bunnings on their own terms. And so that affects everyone. That's obviously the biggest human rights travesty to have ever occurred.
Yeah.
So
click and collect, guys.
Just to click and collect. Yeah, it seems easy. Yeah, so do you agree that it doesn't seem as reliant upon?
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. There was a honeymoon phase, I think, where because a lot of these guys, because there's this really quick incubation phase that these people went through in their peeling or the radicalization or whatever you want to call it. So many of these people fell into the conspiracy so quickly. And for some of them, it might have been because there was in the background, there was like one little conspiracy theory, but they hadn't really dove in feet first the way that they have now. There was this sort of phase where they didn't know that when you're a conspiracy theorist, you're not even supposed to trust the other conspiracy theorists. And so they were still feeling that out. And now that a bit of time has passed, they've worked it out. I was like, oh no, everyone's a shill except for me.
Yeah, anyone who does something that I don't like or that I feel makes me look silly when I'm representing this is therefore a plant.
Now that they've gotten past that incubation phase, now they're fully into it, where I see they're talking about protesting again this weekend, and it's either going to be on the Saturday or the Sunday. And it's like, well, the people who originally proposed the 13th of September are the same people who betrayed us on the 5th of September. Yeah, they were saying at the time we should do this on the 13th instead of the 5th. So we can't trust the 13th. But then anyone who's like, no, let's change it from the 13th to the 12th, well, it's like, that was what got us in trouble last time when we changed the date. So anyone saying change it from the 13th to the 12th is suspect.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it?
Difficult, but very funny to watch.
It is funny to watch. I must say, I do kind of, you know what, it's not like it's all that old, but I kind of do miss the raw creative energy of the early anti-lockdown thing. I miss March, April era. You know, I do. The smashing of the TVs and the We Are the 99% stuff is really funny when I look back on it. I felt I had found something of a true north with looking at these people then. I'm like, oh, this is exciting. You know, I had some springtime, old Patriot Movement vibes about it. They were young. They were naive, and you know, there was a point. I actually had conversations with Thanos Paniidis, and I was going to talk to him on my podcast, but then I thought it might be funny. I was going to argue with him. I was going to see if an argument might be had, because in early days he just hadn't annoyed me that much, and I had got a sense from him that you know, I was looking in the things. I was trying to tell everyone in the early days, you know what, they're not that racist. There's actually, they seemed in the Facebook groups to be putting people down who were. And I thought, you know what, I don't agree with him, but I also don't think of him in a no platform style way. You know what I mean? I think that I can have an argument with this person. And he was very civil. But then, you know what happened? Then Black Lives Matter happened, and they were all doing this is funded by Soros. And I thought, you know what? Stuff you. I'm not going to talk to you. Go to hell.
So you missed out on some hot recipe tips as well, Tom.
Yeah, I did. Has anyone watched him on the show? I'd really like to watch that old family food fight season and see how it was in it.
My impression is that over the course of the last few months, things have seemed to be taking a slightly darker turn as the kind of frivolity and relative degree of unseriousness that was present at the beginning has soured. Because those who've thrown themselves into it have found themselves, you know, subject to police repression, criticism from others, and as the pressures have mounted, given the, you know, lengthening of the lockdown, there's a much higher level of despair and anger and upset, and hence there's more. Well, there seems to be, I could be wrong, but there seems to be more, the rhetoric that's been engaged in is increasingly engaging with more violent forms. You know, it's becoming a bit grim in that sense.
Yeah, I'm noticing the threats, you know, the fantastic threats against people in power like Daniel Andrews, they seem to be upping more, and, you know, and I mean, I suppose if there is an element with movements like this of people kind of like, you know, externalizing their internal turmoil regarding, things that they, you know, are being forced to commit to that they don't want to commit to, you know, so instead of you arguing internally with yourself about the turmoils of the lockdown, you sort of put it out there and you make everyone else argue with you about it. You know, if there's an element of that with them, well, you know, that's become, you know, would have become you know, the turmoil has just increased, as you say, you know, over time, and they have soured, and you know what? I have no doubt that it must have been very, very difficult to be in the position of someone like Thanos over the past few months, you know, with all the police oversight. And, yeah, as you say, I mean, they're a very annoying pack of people, the sort of pack of cats to try and herd, you know, constantly accusing you of, you know, thanks for standing up, or you're not standing up enough. Buddy, you're a cop. You're not a cop. You're a god figure. You're a cop again. You know, they're a very annoying bunch of people. You know? So it can't have been easy. I mean, my advice to them is just don't do it and, go and read a book or something. But it can't have been easy. So, big shout out to Thanos.
Well, on that note, we could have wrapped it up maybe 1 minute earlier when you'd said something quite profound, but we'll wrap it up on that note.
Let's do that.
Well, thanks very much for joining us, Tom.
No, sweet. Thanks so much for having me.
Always good to hear from you.
Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Take your protein pills and put your helmet on. 10. Ground control 9, to Major Tom. 8, 7, 6. Commencing countdown, engines on. 3, 2. Check ignition 1, and may God's love be off with you. This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade, and the papers want to know whose shirt you wear. Now it's time to leave the capsule if you dare. This is Major Tom to ground control. I'm stepping through the door, and I'm floating in a most peculiar way, and the stars look very different today. For here am I sitting in a tin can,